Hey, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. My name is Dave. If it's your first time here, then welcome to the How to Podcast series. And if it's your 10th billionth time being here, that's a lot of numbers. Welcome back to the show. Nice to have you here. We are looking today at how to embrace vulnerability and genuine storytelling as a podcaster. A little bit of being vulnerable. Are you ready to be vulnerable? Is that a fun word to say? We're going to talk about that on the show. A little housekeeping for you first. It's March, so coming up in a little bit will be the podcast-thon at podcastthon.org, and it is where we're going to do a charity for the week of the middle of March and showing and shining a light on great people who are charities in our communities that do great things, and we use the power of podcasting to shine a light on them. And so we, at this show and my other shows, are focusing our spotlight of the show onto the Humane Society internationally. So wherever you are in the world, your local shelters, and supporting that we want to keep our animals in safe, loving homes and adopt these pets. That's very important. So that's something my wife and I are very proud to support. And we have adopted pets in our home, and they are the light of our house. So we love adopting and giving homes to these pets. It's such a big celebration. And if you're like, well, do the pets even care? Yeah, they care. You can see it when you walk out of the shelter in your community and give life to a new animal. That ride home from the shelter is great. Our most recent dog we got, his name is Django. And Django, we went to the shelter and saw him, and his owner, the person that had Django, had a mental health crisis and wasn't able to take care of him any longer. And instead of endangering Django, the person had to bring Django to the shelter. And it was heartbreaking because it wasn't Django. It wasn't an issue. None of that. It was just this person couldn't take care of Django. And you could see it on Django, like, why am I here? Like, what did I do to end up in this place? And we knew in that moment, well, we wanted to adopt every dog, but in that moment, we knew that Django was coming home with us. So that's why it's important for us. And I would encourage you to go support your local Humane Society, shelter, or whatever you have in your community, and give life to an animal. That would be my ask of you. So thank you. Before you go buy a dog from a breeder, go take a walk through your local shelter before you make that decision, because you could save a life as well. So please, thank you for that little side tangent. But yeah, in this coming week here on the show, we're going to be doing an episode around the Humane Society and all of that, in addition to what I just said. And we're going to shine a light on it. It's not too late for you to be a part of this. Podcastthon.org, links in the show notes. You can go there and submit your podcast, be a part of the endeavor of using podcasting to raise awareness for charities around the world. So please come join us. It's free to do. And your podcast will live on the website for an entire year. And people will be able to come and find your show. You can group shows by country, which is really cool. So for me in Canada, I can see all the Canadian shows that are in my country and then go follow them and fall in love with them. So if you're in the US or wherever, you can sort by country and find a podcast that you would love to listen to. You might not have heard of otherwise. So if you want to be found, participate in things like Podcasthon, and you can also gain some new listeners in the process. It's a win-win, right? Okay. So we want to talk about how to embrace vulnerability and be genuine in our storytelling as a podcaster on the show today. I'm happy you're here. Let's jump in. When I think of being vulnerable, I think about putting ourselves in a situation where people can say what they want about us. They can respond the way they wish. We don't really have control over the outcome. And we're putting ourselves out into the world in a way that can be a little intimidating, can be a little scary, because we don't have the control of the response. In podcasting, we're recording, we're putting our voice out into the world. Again, many of us have never done this before. We don't have a profile or a platform online. People don't know who we are, but we go create a podcast because we love our topic and our subject and what we want to talk about. We love building community and interacting with people. And this is the first time for us to do this. So we're being very vulnerable in the sense that we're putting ourselves out there. Even our family don't understand why we love podcasting. They don't get it. They just don't understand why we want to do this. Like, why would you ever get on the mic? Like, are you that full of yourself that you want to have a show about yourself? It's not really about being full of ourselves. It's just knowing that we have a message for the world. And even though not everybody gets it or understands our motivation or what keeps us podcasting, there's something inside of us that tells us to continue going forward with this podcast. And by doing that, by putting ourselves in the world and putting ourselves out there, it's like a magnet for some people who just are looking for people to pick on. And that's the downside of podcasting, I think, is that by putting yourself as a public-facing person, you open yourself up to scrutiny. You open yourself up to people making opinions about you. And it just becomes part of the process of doing a podcast. And now if you're saying, Dave, I don't want to be a podcaster then because I don't want people to judge me. Well, I just want you to know you have been judged more this week than you know. Have you driven your car anywhere this week? Like, people have been judging you from all around you on your driving ability. Whether you use your signal, whether you made a wrong turn, whether you blew through that red light, people are judging you just driving your car. Do you go on public transit? Do you sit next to somebody? Do you know they're judging your hygiene? Did you wear deodorant today? Did you forget? They're going to know, and they're going to judge you. Oh my gosh, the smell of this person. Do you know that people are going to judge you by the bank account that you have and the amount of money in your bank account? And you leave that little slip of paper that comes out of the ATM and you look at your balance and you throw it in the garbage. Somebody can pick that up and look at your balance and go make a determination of you and judge you in that moment without even knowing your name and go, wow, as $3 in the bank, this person is not good with money. Do they know you? No, but they just made an opinion around you based on the information they had in the moment. So being vulnerable, you've been judged a lot already, and you don't even realize what people are saying about you behind your back. So don't go shopping at the store and buy groceries because the person behind you is watching you pull the stuff out of your cart. And these are the things that you think are important enough to buy. And all they see is potato chips and we call it pop in Canada, soda. They see you buying snacks and junk food and microwave dinners, and they're like, oh my gosh, you're being judged right now. Just stop and look around you. There's someone looking at you going, why is that person wearing headphones? Come on. It's happening all the time. So if you're afraid of being judged, then please don't go anywhere. And don't talk to anyone because it's happening all around us. And you've been fine with the judgment so far. So starting a podcast, I know it's vulnerable for you to put yourself out there, but the benefits outweigh any feeling of being inadequate in this space. I think vulnerability is something we should embrace as podcasters. It can be a really powerful tool in how we tell better stories. So let's talk about that. Here's a few things to consider about being vulnerable and embracing it in our storytelling, in our podcast. First, share some personal experiences. One thing that AI can't do is tell your story. AI hasn't lived your life. AI hasn't done any of the things you've done. AI hasn't experienced life. AI is AI. So if you want to stand out in a world of vanilla podcasts created by AI and people reading from AI, then throw in a bit of you. Add a bit of Dave, if your name is Dave, like me, to your content. Let people in behind the scenes to who you are. Share personal experiences that open up storytelling and put context to your words. So you're not just reading off a bunch of stuff to people, but you're sharing personal experiences with your audience. Open up about your own journey so that people can relate and have a deeper connection with you as a listener. Be open, be transparent. Acknowledge the things that you're dealing with in real time. People love to follow a journey. And sometimes when we only share the results and not the process, people feel like they missed a few steps. So knowing that you're on a weight loss journey and today you broke off your diet and did something you shouldn't, and now you're beating yourself up about it, and you're going to get better, and I'm going to try. Thank you for holding me accountable. That kind of content is much better than preaching at people about how they should be better. You're living your life in front of people, and you're being vulnerable. And by being vulnerable, people will then see themselves in your story and then map your story to their life and feel like they have an ally in their world who gets them. Because again, you're not preaching at people about how to be like you. You're being like them. I think the best podcasters represent a listener that's like them more than a listener who is below them. By identifying yourself as one of the people in your community, doing life, getting better, growing through lessons, growing through failures, turning failures into success. By living your life as a podcaster in front of your audience in real time, I think personal experiences are one of the best ways to be vulnerable, yet still lead the conversation. It's a balance. So share more personal experiences in your podcast. People will relate and identify, and they'll love you more. And then the next part goes right with that, is to acknowledge the challenges that you're facing in real time. So if you're struggling with something and you can share it in a way that will help your audience, sometimes the struggles that we haven't really worked through yet. We're not ready to talk about them. So don't open yourself up to sharing things that are not really formatted yet in your mind, right? So give yourself some grace there, but acknowledge challenges. Be honest about the obstacles you're facing right now. You're like, I'm a podcaster and I can't meet the demands of a weekly podcast. And I'm really struggling because I really want to do it weekly. Then maybe every second week is fine. And your audience is good with that because they want you to be fine. They don't want to see you like stop podcasting because you can't meet some arbitrary rule that you have to do it every week. They'll be fine with even once a month as long as you're okay. They'll be fine with that. So acknowledge your challenges. Tell people, listen, I'm really struggling right now and I'm not making enough money to survive. I just want to put that out there. If you're struggling like me, I hear you. I see you. Someone else listening is like me too. I can't. There's more month than there is money. It will help your audience to identify you as a real person. So acknowledge your challenges, things you faced in your journey as a writer, as an author, as a podcaster, as a dad, as a mom, as a business person. Share the things that are keeping you up at night because someone else is also feeling the same way. So share your struggles and your challenges. And number 3 would be simply to leverage questions. Ask questions in your podcast. I love a podcaster that's curious. I love a podcaster that's humble in their curiosity. They are seeking input. They're seeking from their audience. They're seeking from guests. They're seeking from meetup groups. They're seeking from experts in their space on how they can improve and get better. I love when somebody approaches life through the lens of curiosity. It shows me that you're a student of life. I think that students make the best teachers because they recognize that they don't have all the answers and they're on a growth pattern and they're getting better every day. So instead of thinking you have to be perfect to be a teacher, you have to be perfect at being a student, in that you're developing your curiosity about what you're doing, no matter big or small, and you're letting your curiosity be your steering wheel. It becomes the thing that gives you direction. And you chase things that you're curious about, And your audience will love it because you're showing your nerdy side, and you're like, I want to know more about this. And your audience is like, yeah, so do I. And you reach out to people, have them on your show, you build relationships, and you chase curiosity, just like a dog would chase its tail. Chase curiosity. Follow it. Chase it. Be passionate about what makes you curious, and stay humble in the process. And then the last part about all of this around being vulnerable in our genuine storytelling in our podcast is to create a narrative structure to our episodes. When you do your podcast, whether it's a guest, solo, co-hosted, story, whatever, any kind of podcast you do, any episode, make sure you organize your episodes with a clear beginning, a middle, and end in a way that enhances the storytelling. Create your podcast so that people have a sense that you're taking them from A to B to C. There's a pathway. To go on a hike and there's no clear path in front of you, it's a little nerve-wracking because you have no idea what's over that next hill. Could be a cliff. You don't know. Could be a river that you can't pass. Knowing that somebody's gone before you and created a path, A, gives you more confidence to take the path because you know at least somebody's been this way once before. And it gives you clear guidance towards a result. You're going to end up here. And I love going to the signs at the beginning of a trailhead, and it says, if you take this path, it'll take you here. This path will take you there. So you can make a decision. Do I follow the red path, the blue path, the green path, the yellow path? So you already know where you're going to end up. And in our podcast, I don't think we clearly identify a big sign at the beginning saying, okay, here's where we're going to go. We're going to cover these things, these topics. Thanks for being here. And then at the end, we kind of make sure people all arrive at the same location. So treat your podcast like a path. Is it well laid out? Do people know where they're headed? Do you know where you're headed? Or are you just hitting record and going, I hope this works? The whole idea around this, around embracing our vulnerability and genuine storytelling, is that we want to make sure that we have a clear focus on where we're heading in our content. Being vulnerable doesn't mean oversharing. Doesn't mean like putting everything out there and being completely exposed to your audience. You don't have to give away everything, but you have to give away enough that people feel like you're talking to them and they can identify with you. Nobody likes listening to somebody who thinks they're perfect because everyone listening is not perfect, so they can't identify with you. So share the things that are important to you and share them in a way that people can connect. You don't have to overshare. Be authentic, be relatable, and share what resonates with you to your audience, because if it resonates with you and your audience loves you, then I can guarantee that it's going to resonate with them. So when you do your next podcast episode, I want to see how you're going to add in some sort of personal experience to your content. I want you to acknowledge the challenges that you're facing right now to be a better human and demonstrate your humanity in your podcast. Ask questions, be curious, be humble, and then make sure that you have a trail in your content that takes people from the beginning to the middle to the end. And that's going to make people want to come back to your episodes. When you have a disjointed, unorganized, scattered approach to podcasting, your audience will get exhausted over time because they never really feel like they actually got something of substance from your podcast. It's kind of like candy. It's there and it never really satisfies. Sure, it's fine in the moment, but when I'm hungry, I'm looking for real food, not some kind of treat. So your podcast needs to be the real food for people as they show up on a regular basis. And if you have any questions about your podcast and you're like, I just like to talk to somebody about my show, maybe get some feedback on my show, I'd love to help you at howtopodcast.ca. Come over anytime. You and I are friends because you've pressed play. So you've already earned my love and trust and respect. And I would love to have a conversation with you simply because you're still here. So go to howtopodcast.ca. There's a calendar link. It's always there. It's always free. It's not a secret funnel to get you trapped into buying some kind of program or book. It's not that. It's just me. Anytime you want, it's right there. And to those that have used that link, thank you. I really appreciate you having time with you in your calendar. And I'd love to talk to you about your show. Thanks for listening. And as we kind of wrap up this little mini-series, we did a little mini-series around Behind the Mic. Hope you go back and listen to that. That's something we just covered recently. And we're looking forward to some great new content, some more great guest co-hosts coming on the show, and more interesting topics around podcasting. And if you're in Canada, we have a new thing called CanadianPodcaster.com. It's an online magazine for podcasters. There'll be monthly editions coming out. I'm creating all of this, and I want to help bolster up the Canadian podcasting scene here in Canada. So if you know a Canadian podcaster or you are a Canadian podcaster, just go over to CanadianPodcaster.com. And even if you're not from Canada and you're interested and curious, head over to CanadianPodcaster.com. You can click on the magazine and go ahead, steal my idea. Happy to help. I'll even walk you through how I did it to show you how you can do your own magazine like that. It's a great tool, and I'd love to share it with you and show you how to do it. So Canadian or not, go to CanadianPodcaster.com and take a look at my new online magazine. It's a little bit different take on an email newsletter, because email newsletters to me are not that exciting and engaging, but a magazine, ooh, and you can flip the pages. Oh, so go check it out. Love to get your feedback. CanadianPodcaster.com. Thanks for listening. So I get asked quite often, usually at the end of a podcast, like right now, Dave, how can we help you? Like, how can we as a listener, like, support the show? Can we come rake your leaves? Can we cut the grass? Shovel the snow? Watch your dog? Help you move? What can we do? Clean your dishes? Oh, that'd be interesting. Well, if you can't do that because, you're in Poland, maybe you can help us by supporting us with our Buy Me a Coffee. It's right there on our website. And, it just will help us to, stay fueled because, we drink a lot of coffee around here. And it helps the show. So if you want to help us, it's out of the goodness of your heart. I can tell you that listening to the podcast to this point, you've already helped us so much. But I do have people saying, Dave, I'd love to give back something small, even just to the show. Buy Me a Coffee link is on our website at howtopodcast.ca. And you can support the show that way. It would mean a lot to have you on our team supporting what we do here. If you find value in the show, then that's great. Share the show, tell somebody about it. And when somebody says, Dave, I want to start a podcast, who should I check out? Oh, you should go check out the How to Podcast series because of all the great co-hosts and all the things that happen here, the meetups, everything. And I would appreciate that. And then fill our cup once in a while if you can. But again, thank you so much for being here and supporting the How to Podcast series. Take care. Talk soon.